recording now. And I'm really happy, everyone that came during this lunch webinar. And would like to hear from Filip and Knowit about how to get started in Cypress test automation. My name is Christian Brandter. I'm head of the department in Knowit in Oslo, focusing on test and quality. With me, I have Filip, who's Cypress IO ambassador. And we host this webinar in context of Knowit Test School. So why do we host this webinar? We've seen that Cypress has gained a lot of popularity lately among our clients and consultants and in the market in general. I'd like to give you some first steps and explain with Filip what the tool can and cannot do. So he'll touch on the how to set up a new Cypress project, the basic syntax, the core concepts, what's the power of Cypress, and what it's not. If you'd like to learn more, then that's absolutely possible. You register for in-depth training with Filip for times 3 hours for consecutive Wednesdays afternoons. And if you like to also go further within test automation, we also do ISTQB Advanced Agile Technical Test Certification. So you can register for both those at the Knowit Test School's website. So let me introduce Filip. He's a software development engineer test and the lead at Slido, also official Cypress ambassador, background from psychology and passion for music learning. Great. And also, of course, learning, blogging, streaming, and creating courses. And biggest job, maybe, father to be beautiful. Over to you, Filip, and thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and yeah, thank you for the lovely introduction. It's a pleasure to be here, and as it was said, and as you probably know from the title of the talk, we're going to be talking about how to start with Cypress. So I'm going to show you some of the basics. I'll show you around the code a little, and we'll talk about why I think Cypress is pretty awesome, and why I think it has a really good future ahead of it. And I hope that I can convince you to come to the workshop where we can learn much more. During my talk, as it was mentioned, I am from Slido, so I am using Slido a lot. So if you just take your phone, scan the QR code, you'll be right in, and at the end of the session, we can do sort of a short Q&A, and I can answer any questions you might have. Hopefully, we'll have enough time for that. But I'm sure we can do a little lightning round of answers and questions. So you have that QR code scanned. That's good. If you don't, because I'm going to switch to next slide in a couple of seconds, you can also join to slido.com, which is easier to remember, and you can just enter the code Knowit there. You'll be right in, and there you can ask a question. So looking forward to those. Christian already did an introduction for me, so I'm not going to spend a lot of it. The only thing that I might want you to focus on is my homepage, philiphric.com, so it's my name.com. Hric, it's my last name, that's the trickier part of that. And I try to write Cypress tips. This is an old slide that I write every week. Unfortunately, I've been so busy that I haven't been able to write a new blog for quite a long time, but hopefully I'll get back on track really soon. And yeah, I do workshops, presentations, consultations, tutoring, anything Cypress related. So yeah, I'm here for you, and especially on that workshop. All right, so let's jump into the topic. So what is Cypress? You may or may not know, for those who are just getting started with Cypress or just getting started to be familiar with Cypress, it is a tool you can describe as a tool being used for anything that runs in a browser. So if you can run it in a browser, you can probably test it with Cypress. That's like the shortest definition. It is built completely from scratch, so it doesn't use Selenium, it doesn't use WebDriver, nothing like that. It's built completely from scratch, so it's a new solution. You can write your tests in JavaScript and TypeScript, and the code is running inside the browser. And I'm going to show that to you because when you're running inside the browser, you get great debugging tools, and that's really awesome to have. It is completely open source, so you can start using it for free today or whenever you might need it. It has a paid dashboard service, which you don't really need to use, but if you do, it adds some nice features feature to your testing, especially if you have a CI/CD pipeline. You need to take a look into your test, do some analytics, etc. It's sort of it's a dashboard service, so it's a good one. But yeah, nothing stops you from using Cypress because it's open source and all free. So the main question I get often is, how is Cypress different from Selenium, right? So Selenium has been here for a couple of years. How does Cypress differ? So I got this slide from my friend Gleb Bahmuto, who's ex-Cypress engineer, and he described it really well, which is the basic, very broad architecture of Selenium is that you have your tests written with, they can be written in Java, Python, Ruby, JS, very different languages. So we got this variety. And Selenium then calls HTTP requests to the WebDriver server, which then automates browser. So basically, you're performing HTTP calls to do the actions, right? Find an element, click, visit a page, etc. With Cypress, the situation is slightly different. So we have our browser, so the big square over here is our browser. And inside the browser, you have two iframes. So inside one of your iframe, there is your application, the one that you're trying to test. And in the other iframe is your test script. So they run in the same event loop, which has a certain advantage to it. It of course has some disadvantages to it. But the main advantage that you get is that you get direct access to your code, to your application being executed. So you can observe changes in your application, you can observe network calls, etc. It's really, really powerful. All right, so let me go and show you a little demo. I have an application. It's an application that I have built for my workshop and for the testing purposes, and it's a clone of the famous Trello app. So if you're familiar with Trello, this will look familiar to you. So let me jump into here, and I have a VS Code running over here, and here is the code of my Trello application. So you can see the whole source code, it's over here, and it doesn't have any tests right now. So let's start with the new Cypress project. So to start with Cypress, let me actually make this bigger. I'm going to open my terminal and do an installation. So I will go npm install Cypress, and I'm going to install version 9.5.3 because that's the one I already have on my computer, so the installation is going to be fast. Don't mind the vulnerabilities, those are from my application. I'm not really a programmer, I'm more of a tester. And if my application works, which is it's not a production application, it's just for the workshop purposes, this doesn't really concern me. Of course, in real world, if you find this, make sure that you fix this. All right, but I installed Cypress, so we're good to go. So the only thing for me to start Cypress is to run npx cypress open. You may have seen there's a run command as well, but we're going to work with this one first. So I'll type npx cypress open, and this is going to open a Cypress in my graphic user interface mode. So let me show you how that looks. It opens here, and here it is. So this is Cypress. This is basically the view that you get when you run the npx cypress open command. And inside here, you can see I have a couple of tests. So what happens when you open Cypress for the first time is that Cypress will create these files, these example files for you. So you get a sort of a scaffold of how the project should look, but also you get sort of an overview of what the capabilities of Cypress are. So whenever I click on any of these files, for example, actions, Cypress will open a browser and will start running tests. So just give me a second. Oops, I guess there's an error. So you can see that we are going live here. And all right, let me start again. Not sure what happened. Still waiting for Chrome. I don't have any Chrome windows opened, so I think it should work. But if not, we can always try to switch browser. So let me start again. All right, slight hiccup. Not sure what happened there. Now it's working, so we can continue. Let me make this a little bigger for you to see. And there it is. All right. So you can see Cypress is executing commands, interacting with the application, and doing typing, clicking, double-clicking, etc. So this is sort of a demo of Cypress capabilities. So as you open Cypress for the first time, some example files are generated, and what you can do is just click on the file and look into how how Cypress actually works. What's also nice, you can sort of look into the files inside VS Code and just copy paste your code and start automating. All right, so yeah, so these are the files that Cypress will generate. And whenever I click on one, it's going to open the browser. And here you can see, as I said, here's one iframe where the application we are testing will appear. And here's the other, which displays our tests. And these are basically our tests that we are executing. Since we are in the browser, our application is still live. We can interact with it, click on different links, etc. So we are in a real browser. This is not like a simulation or some mock browser or anything, which is good. All right, so let me close this so we can take a look at what happened in our project. So let me stop the browser. Oh, by the way, we have the choice of browsers that we currently have, or that I have on my computer, is Chrome, Firefox, and Electron. If I had Microsoft Edge installed, Cypress would automatically find that on my computer and suggest that I can run my tests in Microsoft Edge as well, or in different browser like Brave or anything that is Chromium based, plus Firefox. There's currently no support for Safari or Internet Explorer. I don't think the Internet Explorer will land anytime soon, but with Safari, this is something that is actually planned. I think later this year it should come out. We'll see how that goes. All right, so let me jump back into VS Code. And those of you who are really good at finding or spotting differences have found out that there are two new items here. So the one is this Cypress JSON file, which is at this moment, it's an empty JSON file, but usually this contains the configuration of our project. So this is something we can, we don't really need to fill with anything, and it will just take the defaults. But if we were to fill it with some configurations, for example, I don't know, viewport height and viewport width, we can do that and we can change that. But I'm not going to do that right now, so let's close this. And the other item that we have here is the Cypress folder. And inside this folder, we have a couple of other folders. We got downloads folder for our downloads, but also we have fixture, integration, plugins, and support. So these 4 folders are, sort of integral to every Cypress project. Downloads doesn't really need to be here, but these 4 folders are important. So inside the fixtures is where your fixtures would live. So any kind of static data, anything that you sort of, anything data related would be found over here. The integration folder is where our tests live. So we got 2 folders, getting started and advanced examples. And these you can see reflected in our graphic user interface. So anything that's here will also be found over here. So this is where the tests live. Then we have plugins and support. So plugins is has an index.js file where you can sort of resolve either your configuration or install different plugins that actually can use Node. So not only can test inside the browser, you can actually execute scripts in Node and communicate between those two. So this is what would happen with our index.js inside the plugins folder. And there's, confusingly enough, another index.js file inside the support folder, which is a file that loads before all of your tests start running. So this would be a place for your custom commands, for your command imports, etc. So we have one import over here. That's commands.js. It's sort of empty, but if you can actually create your own custom commands and functions, and this is a nice place for you to have them. So yeah, so this is a Cypress project. So let's go ahead and write our first test. So we can delete all of these files now by clicking over here. No thanks, delete example files. And this would delete all of the files inside the Cypress integration folder. So now it's empty, as you can see. What we can do is to create a new file right from here. We could do that in the VS Code, but we can do it over here. So when I click on it, I get this sort of convention of typing files with a spec.js. We can either use JavaScript or TypeScript, or we can use other files as well. There are different preprocessors where you can sort of work with markdown files and all kinds of different files. But yeah, mostly it's JavaScript and TypeScript. And let me just call it test spec.js. So I'm not feeling very creative, but let's create that. So here I have created my file. So let me click on that. This will open my browser. And inside my browser, you'll see that there are no tests found, which is, I guess, logical because we haven't added anything. We haven't created our file. Let me arrange my windows a little and open my test spec over here in VS Code. So we got an empty file. There's nothing over here, but there's a comment which sort of guides us if we want to write our first test, and it goes to the documentation. I'm going to delete those and create my first test, which is going to look something like this. So it's my first test and a function. All right, so what did I just do? If you are familiar with Mocha, if you were running unit tests, or if you were running Jest, or even Selenium. Mocha is a testing framework, and it is bundled inside Cypress. So very simply put, one it function equals one test. So if I save my test now, I'm going to hit Command S. My browser is automatically going to rerun. So you can see that my first test is already appearing here. Here, let me make it actually a little bigger. Can I do that? Oh, here it is. Good. That's I guess much better to see. So you can see the name of my test, but you can see there are no commands issued in this test. And the reason for that is that my it function, that is over here, we gave it the first argument, which is the name of the test, and the second argument, which is a callback function, is still empty. So this is where we would add our Cypress commands. So let's write our first test. Let's visit a page or open a page. So to do that, I'm going to type something like this: visit, and let's visit a page. For example, Cypress IO. So again, I'm going to save my test. This is automatically going to rerun. And oh, I forgot the colon, so let me save it again. And now it's running. So we have opened the homepage of Cypress IO, and just as easy as that, we have written our first test. So what did I just do, right? See that I didn't have to do any kind of imports. This is basically how my test will look. This command sort of contains of three parts. The first one is the CY, which is a global Cypress object that I have that is available for me in every test. And then I have my visit command or visit function, which is chained off this CY object. And as an argument, I'm passing our URL which I want to visit. So the syntax is really very simple, and I'm going to show that to you in a couple of minutes as well. Some different commands. So when I open my page, you can see that there's visit command over here, and Cypress also keeps track of all of the HTTP XHR requests that are happening on the page. So when I hover over different states, I can actually take a look at the snapshots of my application. Not much is happening here, I guess. So we can show that. I can show that to you in a second how that will look. But you can see basically all of the HTTP calls that happened here as well. All right, so let's go further. But before we go any further, let's actually open our application. So as I said, we have this project, this Trello app. Now, if I want to run it, to do that, I need to open a command npm start. Oh, by the way, you can find this application on my GitHub. And I'm going to show a link to that at the end, but it's basically github.com/Filip. So let me start the application. So now it's running on localhost 3000. So how about we copy this URL and use it in our visit command. So let me open it. I'll save this. And now that I have saved this, you can see that my application is opened. So let me make this a little bigger for you to see. So this is the application that's running locally on my computer. So this is sort of a developer's setup where they would open their application locally and test it locally. This is where Cypress really shines, but as you have seen just now, you can also open applications that are live on the web server. All right, so we got our first command. So what do we do next? Where can we find our other commands? And the answer to that is, of course, the documentation. So docs, Cypress.io is a great resource. And I know not many people love reading documentation, but in my opinion, Cypress has done a really good job here. And I suggest that if you're using Cypress, you take a good look into what's over here. So not only we have all of the commands that you can chain off the CY object here, you also have like a description of the syntax, correct usage, incorrect usage. So a lot of resources for you to copy and paste into your code or study and understand how the application, how the Cypress commands work. But then not only that, there's a whole guides section where you can find different kind of guides for you to use Cypress in a proper way. So yeah, so let's continue with our test. But with the documentation, there's actually a neat little trick you can do. You can take a documentation right into your VS Code or to your editor. If you're using VS Code, it's easier, at least I think. And if you're using some other, I think this should also work. There's this / directive that is basically an information for our editor to use types from Cypress. So what happens now, if I start typing cy command, I get this nice little drop down with all of my commands available here for me. So that is pretty neat. All right, so let's create our test. So in my application, what I can do, I can type the name of the board. So for example, new board. And when I hit enter, it's going to take me into the detail of that board. So, and inside here, I can create a new list. And also inside the list, I can create a new card. So we can automate a flow that would look something like this. So let's do that. I'm going to delete this. And let's go step by step. So the first thing I want to do is to select my element, and then I can interact with it. Now to do that, of course, since we are in the browser, I can just right click and go inspect element, and all of the dev tools that are available in Chrome are available to me during writing my test. So I can look into the console, I can look into the elements, and I can find the element that I want to select. Now, to select element using Cypress, there's a get command, which as an argument would get a query selector. So if you ever worked with CSS, this will be very easy for you. If you have not, I'm sure it will be easy to learn. If I want to select element by class, I would prefix that with a dot and the name of the class. If I were to use ID, that would be this hashtag and ID. And if I want to use an attribute, then I just name the name of the attribute. So for example, href and the name of the link that is inside the anchor attribute. So something like that, pretty easy. But besides this, we can also, there's also a Selector Playground available in Cypress. So if I click on that, it works very similarly to our inspect element, but it can find a selector for me. So when I hover over different elements, it's just going to suggest me a selector. So if I click over here, I can see that it's just going to render out this whole get command for me. So cy get data cy first board. So I have added this data cy attributes inside my application, which is a good practice. At least that is something that Cypress recommends, and I found it to be really practical. I used just classes to select my elements before, but nowadays I like to add these into my application, which works really great for me, and I don't have all of the work of ever-changing selectors. I can just focus on the functionality. So here is a copy button. So I have copied the whole command. So let me paste that into my test and CY_get data CY first port we have selected. So let's type some text into that. So to do that, there's a type command available, which again, as an argument, would get something, and that something in this case would be the text that we want to type. So let's do a new board, and I'll save my test and take a look into what my test is doing. And as you can see, it has selected my element and typed the text into it. Now, when I hover over my commands over here in the timeline, you can see that Cypress is doing snapshots of my application as the commands were executed. So we can take a look into the state how my application looked before this command was executed and after. So you can see the text appear. You'll see before, after. Not only that, but when I click on a command and open my console, you'll see that Cypress actually uses console to print out information about each and every command. So you can see the name of the command, you can see what we have typed, and also what element this action was applied to. So here's a whole element that that was interacted with in our application. And there are also all of the events that were triggered while we used the command. So you can sort of look into all of the events that were triggered when we were typing. So NEW, board, etc. It's all shown over here. So lots of details about each and every command, and you can use that with the console, which is pretty neat, if you ask me. All right, but we have started typing, but we haven't really entered the enter key, right? We want to hit the enter key so we can create our board. So how to do that? Just wrap the enter key inside these curly brackets. So this is something that can be easily found in the documentation. And since I have it right over here, I can just copy the link. Can I copy the link? Not sure where it opens right now. Oh yeah, here I have it. So here's my browser, and inside here I can take a look into what are the arguments that my type command would use. And here you can see the list of all the special characters we can type in with our type command. So I can see enter over here, also escape, home, insert, left arrow, etc. Those are all the keys that we would wrap inside these curly brackets. All right, so let me go back to the demo. And we got our new board, enter. Let's save this test. Let's see if it does something that the thing we want. All right, here it is. We have created a new board. That's awesome. So I'm going to delete that so I have a clean state before my test. And I will continue. Actually, shouldn't have deleted that. So let me run it again because I want to create a new list over here. So add list input. I'm going to copy the selector and continue with my test, right? So let's get add list input. Again, I'm going to type a new list, not new lost, but list. Type enter again. All right, so let me delete it, run my test. Now I can see that I have created a new list. And here I have this add another card button, which when I click on it, I'll see my input. So what we can do in Cypress as well is to select elements not only by query selectors, but we can select them by text. So to do that, there's this very nice contains command, and I can just type add another card and just click on it using click command. So again, very intuitive, very easy to read syntax. And you could argue that text is not the best selector, but I would argue that some things don't ever change. Send button in Gmail will always be a send button, so maybe that's a good selector. All right, so we can add another card, and then inside the new card input, we are again going to type in some text. So let's do get. I'm going to type the selector over here, and then I'm just going to type a new text. So let's do a new card, and again I'm going to type enter. All right, so we got this. Let me delete and save my test, and voila, our automation is here. So on this timeline, again, I can take a look into how my application looked during each part of the test, and I can even click on it and sort of look at the snapshot of how the application looked. There's this little highlight over here, which I can turn off if I need to, and I can travel back in time and take a look into what was happening, which is again great for debugging. Now we have created an automation, but you could argue we haven't really created a test. So let's make some assertions. Let's make sure that that, for example, if we create a new what can we assert? All right, if we create a new list, that the list will actually appear, and when we create a new card, there's exactly one card in our DOM. So let's do that. So after we create our list, which is over here, and we hit enter, I want to select this list element, and I want to make sure that it is visible in our DOM. So let's add this data cy list, and with a command that's called should, I can create an assertion. And since I want it to be visible, I'll type be visible. So all of these assertions are again a part of a bundled library with Cypress, which you don't really need to import, it's just there. And the library is called chai. So you can use chai assertions for every, basically anything in your test. So let's type should be visible. That's all good. And after we create a new card, then again we want to select our card. So let's select that, add it into our test, and then type again should. And I want to make sure that there's exactly one card. So to do that, I'll type have length 1. So you may ask why have length? This doesn't seem really intuitive. So the reason for that is that whenever I select an element, what Cypress is going to do is that it is going to return the element that we have found. So if it returns multiple elements, it's going to return a whole array of elements on my page. So this would be, so the assertion we would do over here is the assertion on the length of the array of all of the elements that were found on the page. So Cypress uses this sort of chaining syntax where you would chain one command after another and sort of create this this chain of commands. So whatever my get command returns, I want to make sure that it has length of 1. So let me again clear the state of my application like this, save my test. And you'll see that beside the automation that I have here, I have a couple of assertions over here. So this looks pretty neat. How much time do we have? We still got a little time. So let me just quickly show you a little thing over here, which is called Cypress Studio. So for any beginners out there, there's this nice little feature, which I'm just going to show you. Studio. Experimental Studio, it's true. So whenever I change my Cypress JSON, it's going to reload the whole thing. But now what I can do, let's create a new spec file, call it Studio, create it. I'm going to run it. And with the Studio feature enabled, what I can do is sort of record my actions and replay them as they go. So here's a new button that I have enabled in the Cypress JSON. So when I click on this, it's going to start recording my actions. So first of all, I need to open the URL. So that would be localhost 3000, where my page is, where my application is running. And now after the application shows up, I can interact with my application, and Cypress is going to record all of my actions. So new board number 2. I'm going to click on create board button, new list. And as you can see, Cypress is recording all of that. If I make a mistake, I can delete commands from that. And after I save my commands, I'll name my test, Studio Test, save it. And inside my VS Code, you'll see that Studio Spec is a file that I have created, and all of the commands that were generated with Cypress Studio are actually labeled with this command over here. And you'll see that everything is generated, and there are multiple actions here. I could also write some assertions. I actually forgot to show you that, but if I would to do a right click during the phase when I'm using Studio, let me actually add one. So let's run this. And if I right click on something, I can just add an assertion. So I can check the text if it has the correct text, check different classes, attributes, check if it's visible, etc. So that's pretty neat. So just to show you the Cypress Studio really quickly, I'm basically reaching the end of a demo. So let me quickly jump back to the presentation to just tell you the rest. So all right, something weird is happening. All right, so there's a tutorial on YouTube talking about Cypress that says testing the way it should be. So you can ask whether Cypress is really the way testing should be. And I would argue that maybe yes, although it is definitely a tool that was built for developers. So you may ask, so why didn't Cypress build a tool for testers? And that's a valid question. But what I would say is that I think that Cypress really opens a gate to understanding the applications we are testing a little more. So for me at least, building the application and understanding how the application should be tested sort of taught me how to test better. And you can see that, yeah, Cypress was sort of built for developers, but testers definitely can benefit from that. So you'll see there's fast test development, TypeScript support. It's built for browsers, a browser where many of the developers work also with the great dev tools. It integrates very well into pipelines. Something I haven't even shown, but it's very, very powerful, is the network stubbing. You can enter your application and manipulate DOM elements, so make an element that is not visible, which can help you with different edge cases that might be hard to get to. And also has automatic retries. And I could probably go on for at least 4 sessions, and I will go on for 4 sessions in the upcoming workshop. So if you're curious about all these and more, make sure to sign up for that. So yeah, controversial statement, testing is development. So what do I mean by that is that I think that testers should become a little more as developers. Also, I would say developers should become more of testers, and we can meet in the middle. So why do I say testing is development? Is that because when developer writes code and opens browser to see the code running, it's not like he or she stopped developing. It's still an integral part of the development phase, and I think we should look at it in such way. So we as testers, when we're writing end-to-end tests with Cypress, for example, we should really think of how the nuts and bolts of the applications are connected, as well as the business side, of course. So I really think that Cypress sort of opens the way for testing as it should be, and hopefully, as you start using Cypress, you'll agree with me. If not, we can discuss, and if we don't reach the same goal, we can still be friends, I promise. So what is the future of Cypress? You have probably already heard of Cypress. You have heard about how it's getting more and more popularity each year. So is Cypress going to stay here or not? Well, last week I have actually spent in US, and I met a lot of Cypress engineers and ex-Cypress engineers. And from what I can tell, Cypress has a really bright future ahead of it. So it's definitely going to stay here. Tests are written in the language of web, so JavaScript and TypeScript, so it fits really well. It has massively improved the speed of delivery of end-to-end tests. So you just saw me write a test in a couple of minutes while explaining what I'm writing. So even if you might decide to migrate today, you'll probably be able to write a couple of tests today. It taps into the power of the whole Node ecosystem, which is something I haven't even talked about, and it's all the plugins, right? So you can install plugins for visual testing, code coverage, almost every tool that you have on the whole NPM page, and and it plays well with browser. You saw that we can use DevTools, and it works really well. Of course, there are some critiques of Cypress. For example, it uses JavaScript to trigger events like type, click, etc., which can, in very small ways, differ from a real browser. But I guess that's sort of a tax of the automation. It cannot open multiple tabs, although I would argue this is not something you really need. And again, that would be a little longer discussion, but I just made a video on my YouTube channel, or rather cut a part of my stream for the YouTube channel where I explain why that's true, so you can check it out. Multiple domain support was not available until Monday of last week, but that has landed, so then we can scratch that off. There are problems with iframe support, so if you're using a lot of iframes, it may be a little harder, but it's something that you can definitely work with. So it's not like it's a no-go for iframes, but it needs a little workaround. And currently, as I said, no support for Safari or Internet Explorer, but Safari or WebKit rather is definitely coming, so watch out for that. Also, Cypress Future. I've been playing with Cypress version 10, which is coming really soon, hopefully in a couple of weeks. We'll see. and it has integrated component testing as well. So if you're absolutely hating Jest, or then you might be in for a treat with Cypress version 10. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. All right, and as I said, multiple domains is not anymore work in progress. It has actually come out as an experimental feature, so it's still kind of starting, but so far what I've seen is working really well. So the only question is, are you ready for Cypress? I hope you are, and yeah, I invite you to the workshop. Hopefully we'll see each other. All right, audience Q&A session. Will this load? It doesn't seem that that is loading. So let me try to refresh just to see if you have sent any questions, so I can answer those. What's that? Is Slido not working for me? All right, so let me just do it.
I can read the questions, Filip, if you want.
I'm sorry?
I can read the questions aloud if you want.
Yeah, you can do that, but I think I'll be here.
Ah, there you are.
In a couple of seconds. Here it is. All right. Can you please announce the topic for your first workshop, 19th of May? I think we just moved it to 25th May, but the topic is sort of a Cypress core. So basically my goal is to give you the good base for using Cypress. We'll be working a lot with the interaction with the application. So clicking, typing, understanding chaining. We work a little bit with network. By the end of the workshop, we'll also take a quick look at the headless mode. But yeah, my goal is sort of to teach you the fundamentals and best practices, because Cypress is different, and especially if you are migrating from a different tool, there might be differences that may confuse you. So my goal is to give you like a really good base for using Cypress. So yeah, it's basics, but hopefully I will be expanding. Actually, I do plan to expand to do a whole session just on API testing, just on TypeScript, just on different like best practices, etc. So there are a lot of more coming, but the one that is coming with Knowit is the one, the core one. Will it be ever possible to use Cypress for mobile app testing? The answer is no, if you are meaning like iOS or Android application. So as I said at the beginning, Cypress is for testing anything that runs inside the browser. So if you have a mobile application that has a browser part, you can test that part. But if you have an application that is, I don't know, like a game or something like that built in Swift or some other framework, this is not something that will run in Cypress. So this is a no-go. But you can get pretty close with the mobile web testing, with changing viewports, changing user agent, triggering different touch events, etc. So you can get pretty close on that. But yeah. How is the code generated from Cypress Studio? Not sure at what point was this question asked, but just a quick recap. As I was interacting with the application, there was on the left side on my timeline, you could see the commands being shown, and at the bottom there was this Save Commands button. So at that point, when I click that button, this code would get basically generated, pasted into this file, and the test would get rerun. So yeah, hitting that Save Commands button, that's the exact moment when those tests are generated. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, make sure to contact me later. I have a whole thing going on. So philiphric.com, that's my blog. and you can get to different parts of what I do using these short links. So I got a YouTube channel, I got a Discord server. So if you ever feel like you have a question and need an answer for that, I'm there. And also Twitter, LinkedIn, and also, as I mentioned, my GitHub page where you can see the application that I have just shown to you. So that's all on my side. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming here, and hopefully we'll see each other at the workshop.
Thank you, Filip. It was really interesting webinar. I hope people are hearing me now because I got feedback that the sound was terrible earlier.
Oh, really?
I just wanted to show this slide again. If you think this was interesting and want to hear more from Filip, register for the upcoming trainings. And I'll even also send out the webinar recording and these links. So thank you, Filip. It was really interesting.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So everyone, have a good day, and thanks for attending.
Thank you, Filip.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. I'm going to disconnect as well. Christian, we'll see each other today.